All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. This is Rob here at Smirking Gun, and we are back with our series of videos talking about devs. We're revisiting the series from 2020, and we are on episode 6 now, which I'm going to call the answers episode, the quote unquote answers episode that you'll get on shows where somebody decides to throw out a bunch of exposition to the main character, usually where a big mystery is finally revealed, and how they handle that. And that's where there was a little bit of like, how do you talk about an episode where they just basically tell the character everything that we already know, and how do you do that in an interesting way? And again, I want to bring up how great this cast has been, with Sonoya Mizuno at its helm. I mean, you've got people like Nick Offerman and Allison Pill and Zach Grenier who are veterans, but the new up and comers, like Kaylee Spaney and Sonoya and Jinha and the like, even though some of the other ones that are got smaller roles like Amy Mullins as Anya and Linnea Berthelsen as Jen, even Georgia King, who, I mean, she plays Nick Offerman's wife, and all she gets is like, she just has to kind of be there. But I even was confused, but by her part, I was like, who is the person in the? But it doesn't matter. Anyway, let's get into this. If you like what we're doing here, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Again, super happy to be doing this show again. Our cold open. Sorry, let's just say this. I am a little worried how this was going to turn out. And again, I say this like every episode, right? But what I got from the cold open, right, is you've got Forrest with his daughter, and that all the good moments, and how like it made me think of like his loss and parents and kids and what he's going through and what it must feel like, because if I'm going to look at it through his eyes and just use his as an example, right? You have this daughter that you just love, and you see all that potential that you have in your child, right? How does that feel, like seeing your child's potential, and just as they grow older, how they blossom, how they can sometimes fade, and how they, how do you react when that happens, if their potential fades, and what happens if they die? uh, I know that this is like everyday stuff that people go through, but since I don't have kids, I don't have like a wife or fiance or any of the like significantly big amount of exes to look back on. All I can ever do is observe through like my family members who have kids, and I do have nieces and nephews, so it's not like there aren't children in my life, but it's just still not the same as, you can be like on looking, and I'll I don't know, this is just how I am, I guess, as I look at it, like I hope for them. I hope that they get what they have better lives than we have, like that there's potential there. And when you see it like maybe squandered, or you think it's being squandered, I mean, you don't really you don't get to step in. You're just an outsider, but you observe it. You can see it happening, and maybe you can say something when you see it, but like, again, outside observer. So I'm trying to understand this as somebody looking inside from the outside, and that I still like, if I allow myself to try to think about what if I had a kid, and I've done that. I can't say I haven't. And the thought of like, or even looking at my own self, at my own potential, and what does it look like? How would it look for how does it look for my parents, and how they look at me, and how like, and how I've turned out or whatever, and so on and so on. It's happened with their parents, and it's daunting, all those thoughts and all those feelings that you get when you're like, think about like, when you really care, like, it's not just about like having like the process of like coming to terms with the idea of bringing a life into this world at any time in history, um that I think is in like a how do I put this, like, I guess that responsibility that you feel, like there's the idea and then there's the reality, and then once you have your children and you want to see the best for them, yeah, that the feeling of like, I don't know. I've seen a lot of people that kind of treat their kids like accessories and extensions of themselves. I've also seen the ones that truly let their children be whoever they are. I've also seen ones that make sure that their kids stay on a certain path no matter what, and that's usually with people who can financially do that. But that's also like, it's all about like how much control do you have? When do you let it go? All those things, man. Ugh, it would drive me crazy. It would and there I am. Now I'm using the crazy word, and they use it in here too. So maybe that's not so bad if we all do it, right? No, it just means that we all need to work on it better, I think. But that whole feeling of and then losing your kid or watching your kid fade away through drugs or something, like I can't all I can do is be like the computer in this and form a simulation in my mind of what it would be like. And it still is terrible. And this is Forrest's life. This is what he goes through. And there's a big part of when in this that they talk about dealing with loss and recovering from loss and trauma. And that's just our cold open. Now we only have Lyndon and Stuart in one scene in this episode, and I really thought they were in the show more, but they're not. And I kind of want to see really what is their overall arc headed. What is it anyway? Because right now they're just kind of the two workers there that are there to kind of show exposition and maybe show, I guess, generationally. Maybe that's why they're in here. The young versus the older tech person and how they both see different sides of the devs project, which man, I'm so ready to stop calling it devs, everybody. And that's what's great about this show is like until you see the whole thing, then you know what it's actually called. I mean, it's right in front of our faces, really. But I was surprised to see and I never remembered this part until he was inside the RV. But that he's at the beginning of the series when there's an RV on the side of the road and we're talking about a homeless man who's drinking and like kind of yelling out. That was the RV that Stewart lives in. So this guy has all this, it's such a contrast. I mean, like Nick Offerman lives in just a plain old house, but he's like a billionaire. And this guy has like probably, if Lyndon has 10 million and he sticks with the project, he would probably potentially get a lot more than $10 million. But he lives in an RV and he likes it like that. Yet he's one of the probably like if you in the show's universe, this guy would probably be in the top, percentile of computer tech people that are smart with computers, man. Like listen to me talk sometimes. It's like I don't even sometimes when I hear myself say something that's like really smart, and then I say something where I basically fumble my words like I've never heard anything ever. Um but Lyndon's here. She hitched back all the way from where she was. She thinks she's being smart. She thinks she's like, all right, I did all the things that I'm supposed to do. And then even knowing, right? Knowing the technology that she helped create, she comes back there. That's like why. And it's exactly because of what I said before about when she got fired and what she was thinking about when she was leaving. It's like this is that room. This is the big room. Well, she's had the biggest moment of her life, which might be the biggest moment of like almost anybody's life that no one knows about except for these few people, right? And how would you feel about if that was taken away? So she's risking everything because she wants back in. And I was like, that's exactly right. She couldn't handle not being a part of it anymore. Like once you've been to that like high water mark where it's basically it's one of those devs is one of those things that when it's created, how you could possibly think, where is there to go from here? Now, surely there are plenty of places to go from here, but not many when you're like literally feeling like you're rewriting the laws of the universe. Like that would make you kind of a god in some respects. Some people might think you were a god. He calls it being a magician, right? But really, it's kind of becoming your own god if you can do that kind of thing. in some ways, and I know that that's blasphemy to some. I always say that we are like the gods, our own gods anyway. Like, we're the ones that control everything that's happening. Well, I mean, the universe controls our planet and all that stuff, and we influence it, but to ourselves, we are our own gods, right? We all the things that we've done. I'm not gonna go down that road yet. We are not trying to create that kind of I don't need to, like, mine this episode that deep. But yeah, I mean, and she's also pissed off because, this is her work and she's helped create it, and this guy she considers him just like he's an entrepreneur. He's not a genius. He's a tech guy, and all he's trying to do is resurrect his daughter, and that he's crazy. And now she's saying it like that, like he's nuts. And he is. Like, the whole thing is nuts, but it's real. They took some crazy idea and made it real. And yet she wants in, and so, like, she wants it's messed up. And then they're gone for the rest of the episode. Now they show Katie with the mouse, the dead mouse, and she puts a piece of bread next to the dead mouse, and then in the simulation you see the mouse alive eating the bread. Now Jamie and Lily, we have them dealing with after he got her out of the hospital. Like, they're in a hotel, and it's exactly the way it would be. You wake up, she doesn't know where she is, him trying to explain herself, but like, there's, again, everything that I see them doing, it's still that, like, they don't understand. Like, oh, we're, like, how many shows have we seen where they run and they hide in the hotel from the big bad guys? They run as far as they can, and eventually, somebody catches up to him. Usually the cops, sometimes hitmen. And it's almost like people do these things almost as if they like, well, that's what they do in the movies. I don't know. If you were to run away like, in fear of your life, would you stay at a hotel? I don't know. I feel like I would, like, try to find a place to hide the car, and then, like, I don't know. That's getting into potentials of on the run behavior, but as much as, he's telling her that now, like, hey, let's go to the media, but it's the same thing. It's the same story. No, she caused an accident. They have this story that she created about her having schizophrenia. She was just in a mental hospital. Now she's running away again. Like, nothing that she says is going to get anyone to listen to her. And how do you disappear in a world that's run 24/7 by technology? We can't use your credit cards. Probably, there's cameras everywhere. It's really hard to just live off the grid, and if you don't know what you're doing. So instead, she just goes right to the source. She goes right to Forrest, who, yep, as we already kind of know from the whole show now, Forrest already knows she's coming. He knew when she was coming. He was awake, waiting for it to happen. And that was part of it. I was like, this is what I'm talking about. Like, how would you act if you knew every beat of every event that especially this fixed point, this specific thing that he's looking into? He knows every beat. He's every move basically he's making is just to get to this point. And it's also kind of it's one of those kind of scenes where two people know everything that's going on, like everything, and the other two people still have no clue. And it's an interesting thing to like Katie's there to tell her everything, so she gets to be in the scene where she learns everything, and Jamie has to sit there next to the guy who's like just putting up like hypotheticals and questions that are awkward in this situation, but not really giving any answers, really only there for like comfort and moral support. But she's still smiling. Katie still has that smile on her face. And I thought it was maybe because she was happy about, like, maybe something different had happened, but it wasn't. It was what I said at the last part of it, which was she's happy because everything is finally close. finally about to pay off. And for her, scientifically, that's just the answer. Whatever happens after the answer, it kind of feels like she's accepted fate. That whatever happens, whether it be the end of the world or something, that it's just how things are supposed to be. And she's kind of the nice little acolyte. I mean, Lily calls her the girlfriend, but really she's more like an acolyte who, fully supports it. I mean, she also calls it, their tech cult. But I mean, it might be culty, but it's like, what if if this cult actually had like some version of God to believe in that existed? If they worship this and then what they can do again, it would say, what was that do? What would that do to your mental state? How would you see things? You would see things so differently. You would be on a different level than other people. Not to say that it's better or anything, just the disconnect. Like in this case, when we've talked about the disconnect between rich people or whatever and people who don't have money or whatever. And can I say or whatever? Let's do a drinking game, like, uh, but no, in the end, she's smiling because this is exactly, what's happening right here, right now. And she saw it. And, like, how do you, participate? Do you deviate? She's paying attention to every little thing, like, as in, I've seen this all. Will it ever, like, will this change? But she's sitting there, like, pleased because everything is just playing out. And Jamie kind of going after Forrest in the way that, like, he talks about how their position is. Like, they're the people who made this thing, and people are dying, and they're just kind of sitting on the sidelines while it happens, just watching the show. And he's like, that is a fair point. He says fair point a lot because people have a point, and he's not, he's not saying anybody's wrong. And I don't think that he thinks in terms of right and wrong like that about this anymore. It just is. And not, it is what it is. It just is. And I think he gets some kind of weird pleasure out of participating in events that he's already seen happen. So he can sit here and handle like the barbs from Jamie, because in his mind it's like just like participating in a movie. And she tells Lily everything about Sergey, everything about Doves. They, who killed him? They, us, me. But that's not what's important. She needs to ask what she doesn't know, which is the big question, which is what is DEVS? And we get into, does anything happen without a reason? And Lily continues to try to bring up things that, well, okay, a kid gets leukemia or you're hit by lightning, but all of those things have reasons, everything. She tries, well, there's just random shit that happens. Name one. We call these things what we think they are. It helps us because it like kind of absolves us for certain things, or it helps us not have to look any deeper into why something happened. Because a lot of times those answers are probably things that we don't want to hear or face. So it's almost like a superstition, a folk tale that but about things that just happen because nobody wants to believe in a universe of chaos. But no matter what she says, like leukemia is because something is wrong inside the kid's body. The lightning happened because of a static discharge. It's not that because she's bringing up things that ever happened without a good reason. That's what leukemia is. Like, that's not a good reason to have leukemia. There's you have something wrong. But it's still a reason. Why did the pen roll across the table? Why did you blink? There's nothing random. A coin flip. Even a coin flip has all these variables. The temperature in the room, the strength of which you flipped the coin. How did you catch the coin? Is there a wind going on, through the room? I've been talking a lot already this morning, so. All right. And that everything is determined by something prior. I always thought that wasn't that choices, though. isn't that just another term for choices? Like the choice to sit down and because okay, somebody's sitting at a table, they want you to have a conversation with him. You sit down, everything. I could go into a long thing and I almost did. But that explaining it to her that this is a computer that sees backwards and not just a pen. That I guess the fixed point that they started at was the mouse on the table, right? They started with the mouse on the table, and I think that was their original fixed point going backwards. Now, what's the fixed point going forwards? Is it still the mouse? Um, Forrest talks to Jamie about coming to terms with loss. But as it sounds to me from both of these men, they never have come to terms with their loss. And that it's basically follows them around like a companion, a longtime companion that just follows us around our whole lives. And I think that that's true for so many of us. That everything, like we take every loss hard, and I think some of them fade, but I don't know if we ever really get over loss. We do all we can to forget it. And there's plenty of times, right, where you can do things to distract yourself, like what I'm doing right now. I've said one of the reasons why I make content is because it helps me deal with uh, the quiet moments when the pain and the trauma and the PTSD and the anxiety and the depression and the autistic tendencies and other stuff sneak in. And I don't know. I think that that is just a huge, huge human thing that we all like, we go to therapy and we do all these things, and it's all just like to put a cork or a stopper in the pain that never goes away. But he says it's all going to work out just fine. He's like everything. Now, I'm pretty sure that things don't work out well for Jamie in this story. Spoiler alert for anybody who's watching this one at a time. I mean, just look at the title description, okay, of the next episode for those of you who are watching one episode at a time like me, right? Look at the description, read episode 7, and tell me that you think everything's going to be fine. Because don't tell me that people don't look at the descriptions of the episodes if you can. And then you go, oh, why did I look at the description? Now I know something. Um, and one of the final explanations that Katie gets into is that DEVS has been working for months. Yes, it's a simulation, and yes, we can look into the future, but we try not to. But that term, "we try not to," that's that's like when people say, "Well, I'm not racist, but," everything but before the but doesn't matter after that. Because when you say you try not to, it means you do, and it doesn't mean you don't know how often that is. But Lily wants to know why this is the moment she's been told that it's going to be specifically hard for her. Well, for them, they have this fixed point, like we've talked about. And when they look backward, they go as far back as they can go. It starts to get staticky, but it's not full static. And they haven't gone back to where it begins, which I would imagine there might be full static, where it can't see anything. It can't predict anything going backwards. Now, going forwards on their fixed point, it only goes for so far, and then there's nothing but static, and it's impenetrable, not even a second further from where they've gotten, a nanosecond. It won't budge. And so that's their big fear, is what they've seen and where it leads them to is that Lily is at DEVS and some unknown event happens, and that's why they can't see the future past that. So, I mean, I imagine if you're one of them, you're probably thinking this is like the end of the world. Like if there's nothing past this, then somehow the raw laws of the universe have just been rewritten and everything stops. Or whatever happens after, we have no way of predicting it. That somehow someone is going to deviate from determinism. And I don't think I said that right. And that this happens in 21 hours, just after 1 a.m., and that a total breakdown of cause and effect, a breakdown of determinism, but determinism, there it is. I did it like breakdown of determinism, a literal breakdown, literal laws of the universe, and we think it involves you. The biggest how ever is what I wrote. Like, how would one person, and that's amazing to me. Like, the writer knows, but how is this going to play out? And this unknown event, I think, already proves that their determinism doesn't work. And she's like, I don't understand. And at least Katie's honest, and is like a lot of us, nobody does. And it's just two guys playing frisbee outside. Well, inside, they're breaking down the laws of the universe. I thought that's kind of funny. The two guys who, again, it's like Lily says, like he's no genius, right? Or no, that's what Lyndon said. He's no genius. He's an entrepreneur. So the entrepreneurs are basically outside while the geniuses are inside. But they still bring plenty to the table. I mean, Forrest is pretty smart though. Both of those guys are really smart. I think the girls are just on a different level. And Kenton. So that everybody goes their ways, right? They leave. It kind of feels like two people walking away from one of those meetings that mobsters have in movies where it's like, you two guys, we're going to meet up and have a little powwow and then we all go away, and everybody brings their guys. Just like at the meetings that they were having with the senator. Everybody's got their guys sitting there. The assistants, anyway. There's like the assistants and the bodyguards. And there's Kenton thinking that they're all buddies now. But he followed them there, watched the whole thing, and I wondered where he was headed, honestly. I kind of thought maybe he'd go right over to Forrest and Katie and kill them both. But that's not what happens. And when Jamie tries to talk about what's going on in that house, what did they say about it? She just basically says, like, she doesn't even try to explain it all to Jamie. She just says they're insane. Just like how she sounds, though. Like, again, they're insane, but if she tries to say anything to anybody, she sounds insane too. But we find out that something was left out. She's like, I told her everything. And he looks at her like, everything? And she says, not everything. So, of course, the show, there's 2 episodes left. And at this point, you got to be thinking, like, how the hell is there more show? Aren't they stretching this out? But no, not really. Not when most of this whole thing takes place in one kind of scene. It's her inside and Jamie outside, and we have the Lyndon thing at the beginning, and not even really Kenton at the end. He's already there. So something's been left out. Is it Kenton? Is that what they're talking about? Like, she says she's not coming to DEVS. There's nothing, no way in hell that she's going there. There's no way they can prove that. She can just decide not to go. But again, I guess it's kind of like Lily not learning fully taking in what Katie says about everything happens for a reason. And you might not know the reason yet, but there's a reason, and you just don't know what's going to happen in any given moment. Again, I can give so many examples. You just don't know. So she's not looking, and she still thinks she's kind of, she's still fighting, fate or whatever they want it to make it sound like it is. And she, asks Jamie to come into her bed, to stay in her bed, because he is who he says he is. And Sergei, all this thing, everything that they've done, everything she's done for this person who died in front of her, thinking of him one way, finding out everything else that's another. And after everything that she's heard, all this is happening for somebody who didn't really know her. She didn't really know him. He probably knew more about her than he knew about her. He definitely knew more about her than she did about him, and the mess that she's gotten herself into, the people that have been hurt. He got himself hurt. I mean, she heard the whole story. She barely blinked about the whole murder. even getting it explained. I think she just wanted to know more than anything else, like to just not feel crazy, to at least know that somebody did this and that she's, again, not nuts. So you know, they get in bed together, whatever. And Forrest and Katie are in bed and they're just having a conversation about how they had guts coming there and how Jamie's, a pretty decent guy and he's sweet and he would really be there for her, and how she's more afraid of not doing something than doing something. And they said that's rare, and they're so damn right, man. I was trying to think about that, and I was like, well, what is it that I do? And it's definitely, I think I have both. Like I sit and have anxiety about the things that I know I need to do and that I just don't do. And then there's also just the fear of doing something. I have fears on both ends of this. I test that all the time. And sometimes I'm able to do things and I push myself to do those things that I'm afraid of. But I agonize, and I know that so many of us just over little things agonize. And they talk about that's one thing about anticipation, right? She's because that's the big last bit of this is she's saying it's not years from now, it's not months from now, it's not weeks from now, it's it's not even days from now, it's only hours from now that the big event's about to happen, and then anticipation of all that. And that's anticipation, man, is a messed up thing because there's good anticipation and bad anticipation, except both make you feel like you they excite you, but there's an anxiousness to it all. Except on one hand, right? Like if you're like, oh my God, I can't wait to go see Wolverine and Deadpool, right? Let's date this. It's 5/28/2024. Like, you're nervous, but you're excited and you're happy, and you know that you're probably gonna, it's gonna be all right. You're gonna, by the end of it, you did anticipation. Once it's over, you're gonna walk out feeling like, yeah, and you'll feel relieved. You'll be happy, but there's also this relief. And the same can go for bad anticipation. When you don't want to deal with something, or something is coming. I don't mean like well, people like have fears of getting murdered or something, but fears of things that actually occur that you're like not looking forward to doing, or that you put off, because you're afraid. Like we have those just fears of consequences of things, and we don't know what will this cause if I do this, and it's like, well, you know what it'll cause. You're just afraid to do it. Once you do it, even in a bad thing, you usually feel better after it. So it's like anticipation's a motherfucker. And speaking of anticipation being a motherfucker, that's the end of the episode where now you'll have to anticipate when is the next episode of me talking about devs coming out? Well, hopefully pretty soon. So we've only got 2 episodes of this show left, 7 and 8. I mean, I kind of know how it ends, but I can't remember how we quite get there. But all I know is that Kenton's going to be involved and a whole bunch of other nasty stuff. So anyway, thanks for watching yet another one of these revisiting devs videos. Don't forget to look up all the other stuff on my channel where there is so much content. Uh, you'll probably find something on accident that you wanted to watch and listen to. So don't forget to hit like, subscribe, all of that jazz. We'll be back with the penultimate episode of Devs sooner rather than later, and we will see you all next time. Be good to each other. Bye.